Welcome to the Chicago Golf Report podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Walter, thanks for having me. So Noteefy is effectively a digital waitlist that integrates into the course's existing tee sheet and notifies golfers when their desired tee time opens up based on their personalized playing preferences. So what that means is we're not an app where the golfer can't download it, but in most cases the golfer goes to their favorite course. So let's take Cantigny, Bolingbrook, Harborside as an example. And maybe not in the middle of winter in Chicago, but let's call it April 15th when everybody's been cooped up inside clamoring to play some golf. Well, what the golfer does is they go to the tee sheet. They say, hey, I'm looking to play between, let's say 8 and 10 a.m. on Saturday for 4 players. Notify me when that time comes available. Then what happens is the golfer goes back about their business. Our technology is monitoring the inventory in real time. And the second a tee time opens up, maybe it was because of a cancellation or because, the tee sheet just opened up inventory 2, 3 weeks out. That golfer gets a personalized text that says, hey, Walter, Cantigny just opened this weekend. Click here to book now. And then we redirect you back to the tee sheet. You book as you normally would. So really, we're kind of like every golfer's personal tee time assistant.
So you mentioned there's not an app. So you would go to Cantigny's website and that's how you'd sign up for the potential for Noteefy?
That's exactly right. So we're kind of our technology is B2B2C. So our customer, if you will, is the golf course. And I'm wearing my Kemper Sports quarter zip today. Kemper Sports is a big time customer of ours. And, we work with them at maybe 50, 60 plus courses. And at any of those facilities, you could go to the course and see our technology as that digital tee time assistant.
So you have a background in consulting before this project, but what got you here? Like when did the idea hit you? Like this might be a product that I could make.
Absolutely. I'm actually a new time golfer relatively. Believe it or not, I wrestled through college. I'm a California kid, born and raised, but played baseball like everyone else in Southern California, got into wrestling. Not too dissimilar to golf. Love that in wrestling, you always know your score. You either win or lose. Takes a lot of the politics out of it. And in the Midwest, you have some tough wrestlers at Northwestern and U Chicago. So I always knew I was in for a fight if I ran into a Midwest wrestler. But after college, I fell in love with the sport of golf. I started my career, as you alluded to, at Accenture, which has a great Chicago presence. Was building my way through the career track in consulting, but they have a ventures group which focuses on investing and partnering with startups. So I was working in the ventures group in parallel, got into golf and went back home to California during COVID and realized finding tee times was incredibly painful, incredibly challenging. I'm sure public golfers in the Chicagoland can empathize with looking on a tee sheet and not finding much until 2 o'clock. So having used other apps and services like OpenTable or Resi or even Google Flights as examples, I said, why isn't there an automated way to notify me when something opens at my favorite course? And that's kind of where the idea was born. We started with a couple courses here in Southern California, and I had partnered up with a great software engineering buddy of mine who is a fellow golf addict, but he actually knew how to build stuff. And we, snowball effect, started with a few clubs. Kemper Sports made a flyer on us when we were still pretty small, and we were off to the races.
So how do you think COVID impacted the start of your business? Was it, do you think it was a catalyst for growth, or do you think it was a challenge, or a little bit of both?
I think COVID, as one silver lining in the industry, just generated a massive amount of interest for the sport of golf because people were looking for something to do outdoors, socially distanced, and being active while spending time with friends. And it was almost a perfect catalyst for the sport of golf. Timeline wise, obviously, COVID hit, really at the end of the winter. And so spring was just coming, and a lot of cities opened their golf courses before they even opened anything else. So I think since COVID, the adoption of the game has really caught fire and exploded in demand as a macro sport and trend. And because of that, busy courses need a way to manage their inventory. And for us, it presented an opportunity because, believe it or not, cancellations and no-shows are a really big problem for clubs. They might have a packed tee sheet as a golfer you go and check, but about 1 in 5 tee times get canceled. And if that tee time gets canceled inside 24 hours, now that club is holding the bag on that piece of inventory. And similar to an airline or a movie theater, if the show starts or the plane takes off and there's an empty seat, it's completely perishable.
So I guess I'm taken back to the idea of these things that have happened in your life to get you to this point. So you start with Accenture, you then get the opportunity in their ventures group, which sounds like it's a perfect path for something like, for you to follow your own. And then COVID hits. Do you ever think about how the serendipity of these three things happening and how it's kind of led you to this point so quickly?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a podcast I love called How I Built This with Guy Raz, and he always asks every guest, how much of this is luck and how much of this is skill. And I often think of that in my own context. I think there's a lot of luck behind it, right? As you alluded to, if golf was declining in popularity, there's really no market opportunity here. At the same time, if I didn't serendipitously get into the game of golf and fall in love with it, I never would have found this opportunity because I'm a late blooming golfer. And then on the skill side, there's a luck component to having acquired the skill set and knowledge around startup go to market. How do you build a company? How do you find customers? How do you scale up partnerships? So I would say it's a combination of, right time, right place with the right skills and being opportunistic when you finally get that intersection of doing what you love, that the market actually has a need.
So I think then that's a great question as far as what is your day-to-day role? You talked about you have a partner friend as a developer. Are you handling everything else? Are you building a team, or kind of what's the status of the organization?
Yeah, we've grown materially, as you alluded to, well north of 500 clubs. We're working with 80 of the top 200 resorts. So in the Chicagoland market, we're working with Destination Kohler. We're working with Sand Valley. We've got Cog Hill. We've got a number of ultra high-end resorts in that market, and they demand high-end service. They don't want software that's just thrown over a fence and hope it sticks, right? So we've built out a pretty comprehensive team. We're now 16 or 17 people, and across engineering, customer success, and sales. So we've got a nice flywheel going, and we always say internally, we've got 3 legs to the stool, and if any of the 3 are wobbling, the whole organization kind of feels it. But my day to day, I would say, is working a lot with our enterprise customers, the Kempers of the world. We also are partnered with 8 of the top 10 multi-course operators. So my day to day is making sure those folks, and in many cases, it's the VP of marketing, the VP of operations, in some cases, the C-level of those big multi-course operators, making sure they're seeing the value of Noteefy, that they're happy with the results. We're always making the product better, tweaking it, showing them new data. And it's my job to kind of be chief evangelist and make sure they have what they need and they're getting what they want.
So as chief evangelist and also the person who kind of came up with this concept, has there been a moment, or was there a moment in the organization where when you came up with the idea, obviously you're like, this might work. I think it could. There's an opportunity. It makes sense, but you never know until there's product market fit, until and people are willing to pay for it. Was there this moment where maybe you came into an agreement with a multi-course operator or with one of the resorts where you said, you know what, I think we've got something here?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as a golfer, you instinctually know that this service is awesome and adds value, because who doesn't want their own tee time assistant in their pocket? And as avid public golfers, it's a no-brainer to get notified when your favorite course comes online. So practically speaking, I think we had a lot of conviction about the concept for the golfer. but there's a difference. I'm sure you've been to the PGA show. There's 3 football field long of gizmos and gadgets in the golf landscape. And I'm sure there's some of them that are great. There's some of them that are interesting. For us, I think commercializing it was a whole nother story. And you're 100% right. There was an aha moment, which was, I got to give a shout out to Kevin McCourt. He's the director of strategic initiatives at Kemper. He's a Chicago guy. And I had a chance to break through the clutter of noise. I sent him a LinkedIn message and I said, "Hey, Kevin, listen, I'm a new golfer, experienced technologist, have this problem, feel like we've solved it. Will you take a look?" And he did. He took a look and he said, "How many courses you at?" I said, "A handful." And at that point, he said, "Let's give it a shot." And kind of internally was our champion. We deployed our solution at 3 courses, a municipal, a high-end daily fee, and a destination rural resort. And really out the gate, there was the product market fit. The golfers at all 3 were using it, loving it. Call volume was reducing, incremental tee time revenue was flowing in. And at that point, we were in business. I looked at that and I said, hey, if a multi-course operator, a muni, a daily fee, and a resort, all 4 personas get value, there's a lot that we can do here for this industry. There's 15,000 courses out there that are public. There's millions of golfers. There's thousands of resorts. And I said, hey, if we could be the catalyst to solve this problem, let's go for it.
I thought it was fascinating that you were able to split test at 3 different types of courses with this first opportunity that you got on LinkedIn. That really, There's a lot of things that came together, because you could have tested it on one type of course, and maybe it wouldn't have been a fit, or maybe it wouldn't have been a popular course. And then you could have said, nah, this isn't going to work. But you had the opposite. That seems like another piece of serendipity that really worked out.
Yeah, it's actually a great point. There's a lot of luck that goes into creating business. You need a lot of things to fall in line to actually get from an idea to traction. Mm-hmm. And you're completely right that we were very serendipitously lucky that the pilot had strong demand. The customers at all 3 of those courses had raised their hands and said, hey, I need an easier way to find times. Ironically, Kemper had just put out research right around that time that said 60% of golfers are looking for an easier and new way to book online. Mm-hmm. And when I saw that in concert with this pilot, I said, you know what? It's really refreshing to have an organization that's willing to not only just do market research, but put their, money where their mouth is effectively and say, hey, we are hearing from our customers that they want change. Well, we're willing to provide that for them, and let's do it. And that's when you're absolutely right. If those had been, not as busy courses, I think we would have struggled a little bit.
So this is probably a question that's a little bit unfair, since you're still fairly early in the journey of this company. But what excites you about, like, say, the next 3 to 5 years for what you're going to be able to do and provide with Noteefy?
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely see ourselves in the early innings of what we're trying to accomplish. I think our mission ultimately is making it easier for golfers to get on the course and ensuring, that operators have technology that's built to keep their tee sheets full and keep their top line growing. So what's immediately next is we have a new product that's going to be coming out soon, which we're pretty excited about. I won't do any big reveals yet, but it's our second album, you could say. Mm-hmm. We've got you can't be a one-hit wonder. So we've got our next act, and we're going to be doing some piloting around the PGA show. I'll allude to it, which is that our current product, Noteefy, solves cancellations very well. Mm-hmm. Our next product is going to focus on no-shows, which we've heard and understand to be a major problem in the industry. So no-shows are the next area of focus. And again, a lot of courses, they don't charge golfers for no-shows because, again, it's a gentleman's sport, or it's, there's a lot of etiquette involved, and courses almost have apprehension about charging for no-shows or last-minute cancellations. And for us, we think we can do something about that. So to your question, I think in the next 1 to 2 years, it's about continuing to scale up in this market and delivering our service to as many courses that have a need as possible while making it better every day. We have a 6-person software engineering team of golf loving, highly technical folks who are working really hard to refine the product every day. And we have a robust product roadmap, which we're excited about. I think this next, our second album, our second act on no shows will be hopefully impactful. And then long term, we again work with many of the top resorts. We're often thinking, hey, what else can we do for these clubs? Can we help them with more than just tee time waitlist automation? But maybe we can go into the spas, we can go into the rooms. We have, for example, Omni Resorts as a big customer of ours, and we're constantly in conversations to say, hey, what else can we do here to help?
So selling to, say, an Omni Resorts there's a lot to that. It's just not like you pick up the phone and find the Omni Resort person and talk to them. You got to find the right person, then you got to find the right pitch, and you got to find the right level. How have you been able to kind of conquer all of those steps so quickly, or how do you think you've been so successful with that?
Absolutely. I think there's multiple levers you pull as when you're trying to grow a business and start a business as a startup builder, as a founder. You're trying anything you possibly can to grow. Ironically, most of the traction I can honestly tie back to LinkedIn. It's kind of funny, it's cliche, but as a founder, when you got to get going, there's no one else who's going to push you out of the nest except for you. You got to go for it. And it's very different than being at a big corporate where, you earn your salary regardless of how you perform. Yes, there's bands and variable performance, but as a founder, it is 100% on you. There's no gold stars. There's no theatrical, perception of value. You got to go make it happen. Otherwise it's not happening. So, really, I could tie back many of our most impactful relationships, both on the customer side, on the investor side, to picking up the phone and putting yourself out there and doing the pitch 100 times. And 95 of them say, that's great, but 5 of them might open a door. And one door after the other moves the needle. With Omni specifically, it's a unique case as well, because the parent corporation that owns Omni is actually also an investor in our company. So we're able to have a little bit more creative liberty to think out of the box as we deploy our solution across we're installed at 21 of their courses. We're across their full portfolio, but we're really trying to innovate with them above and beyond just being a tee sheet automation.
So 2 final questions for you. Number 1, when you talk about no-shows and cancellations, I can't help to think about other industries, because it's a big deal for, say, like healthcare. Do you draw any kind of, ideas or motivation from seeing that? Or is that inspired some of the thinking that goes into how you create your product?
100%. Yes. When we look at Open Table in the restaurant industry, we're extremely inspired by the elegance of the customer booking journey. We're inspired by the level of automation that they provide to the restaurant operators to simplify so many different aspects of running their restaurant. And so we look to Open Table as inspiration. They're 20 plus years old, multi-billion-dollar business, but they do a lot of things really well that we take inspiration from. I think they maybe started in Chicago with their first few restaurants even. And then at the same time, when we look at the healthcare industry, there's a lot that needs to be improved about healthcare, but at the same time, there's a lot of smart people building software to innovate in that area. And you're 100% correct. We take inspiration from helping minimize no-shows in the healthcare industry and what we can bring from that into the world of golf.
So final question, then, when you're talking about the fact the company's on its first album, you got the second album coming out pretty soon. So it's obviously, it's in the grand scheme of things, this is a quick question to ask so early on. But when I interview, say, like people from the Western Golf Association, they talk about, this always struck me about them and the Evans Scholarship Program and how it impacts all these thousands of families for the last 100 years. That was one of those moments where you felt like, wow, that they're making a big impact. You're obviously making a big impact as well, not only in the golfers' lives were able to access tee times and have a better opportunity to get on courses that fits our schedule and a lot of more benefits, but you also do that the same for your clients, right? For the resorts or for the courses. Has there been a moment so far that's been where you've been able to, perhaps you're talking with somebody from Kemper or any of the other courses where you saw they were excited and happy, that kind of translated to you? We're like, boy, I think we're doing something good here.
Absolutely. I get a lot of pinch me moments, but I would say the first one that comes to mind is one of our first 5 customers was Sand Valley Resort in Wisconsin, which is not a bad first 5 customer to have. And any of your listeners, if you haven't been, I highly recommend you book your trip to Nakusa, Wisconsin as soon as possible, because it's like golf Disneyland, honestly. And I was visiting the client early on in our journey working together. And we were sitting in a conference room. We're looking at the results. We had a few thousand people who'd used it, hundreds of rounds booked, and we were just blown away by the impact. And shortly after you have feel good meetings and you have feel bad meetings. This was a definitely feel good meeting. We were looking at the data. We're saying, wow, look, golfers from around the country are using it. Phone call volume is plummeting. Golfer rounds are up. Kumbaya, high-fiving, this is awesome. And then, shortly after, walking onto the course, looking out. And I don't know if you've ever been out to those rolling kind of sand hills in Wisconsin. It is special. Certainly very different than any fairways in Southern California that we have. And so to hear about the impact to the operating side of the course and the resort, and then to step onto the course and smack a few balls around was pinch me experience. That was kind of the welcome to the golf industry, that I think you have that holy smokes, am I dreaming moment. And after that, we've built an amazing relationship with the team at Sand Valley. They've, the Kaiser family, Dream Golf, they've always, and down to the operating level, I think about Jordan Powell, Logan Block, those are the director of reservations, the director of revenue management, all the way up to the Kemper leadership, Mark Fremont. These folks took a gamble on an early stage startup with an idea and some cool technology and said, hey, let's partner here, let's innovate. And yeah, we might stub our toe here or there, but now we're 2+ years almost into the relationship. And it's pretty cool that they always raise their hand and say, hey, let's try the next thing. Let's try the next thing. Provide feedback constantly. And for us to have what we call it like a design partner like that is really exciting and impactful.